She hurts Mommy when you leave. 6 words from a 3-year-old girl were enough to stop Adrian Cole, one of Chicago's most feared men, on the morning of his own wedding. Outside, black cars lined the frozen drive. Inside, white roses climbed the marble staircase. Champagne waited for 200 guests. And the woman Adrian trusted most was minutes away from becoming his wife. Then, little Ellie tugged on his tuxedo and pointed toward the bridal wing. Her mother stood across the hall, pale silent, pulling one sleeve over a bruised wrist. Adrian had spent his life believing power meant seeing danger before it reached his door. That morning he learned the most dangerous truths often survive because everyone is too afraid to speak. Stay with this story because what he discovered behind those closed doors changed far more than a wedding, like the video and comment where you're watching from. 7 days before Ellie tugged on Adrian Cole's tuxedo and whispered the words that would freeze an entire wedding morning, the Cole estate still looked untouched by suspicion. Winter sunlight spread across Lake Michigan in a pale silver sheet. Beyond the iron gates, bare trees stood motionless beneath a white sky, their branches reaching over the long private road that curved toward the house. The Cole estate sat north of Chicago, hidden behind stone walls and acres of frozen ground. It was the kind of place people slowed down to look at even when they knew they were not supposed to. Dark stone, tall windows, black iron balconies, a private drive wide enough for a line of armored cars. Nothing about the house begged for attention. It expected it. Inside, however, the morning was almost ordinary. Almost. In the kitchen, Madeline Hayes stood beside a marble counter, slicing strawberries into a small ceramic bowl, while her daughter sat on a stool nearby. Ellie's legs did not reach the floor. They swung beneath her as she colored furiously across a sheet of white paper with a purple crayon. Her stuffed rabbit sat beside her, leaning against a jar of wooden spoons like a silent supervisor. Rosa Martinez moved between the stove and the pantry with the calm efficiency of someone who had spent nearly 20 years inside the same house. She glanced at Ellie's drawing. "What is that supposed to be?" Ellie looked offended. "A rabbit." Rosa leaned closer. "The rabbit is wearing a crown. He owns the forest." Rosa considered this. "Of course he does." Maddie smiled as she placed the strawberries in front of her daughter. "Eat before you declare yourself queen of the kitchen." Ellie picked up a strawberry. "I'm not queen." No. Mr. Rabbit is king." A man's voice came from the doorway. "That sounds like a dangerous concentration of power." Maddie looked up. Adrian Cole stood at the entrance to the kitchen. He wore dark trousers, a white shirt with the sleeves buttoned at the wrists, and a charcoal coat draped over one arm. His tie was still loose around his collar. Most people outside the estate would have straightened the moment he entered. Maddie did not. Neither did Rosa. Ellie certainly did not. She lifted her drawing as high as she could. "Mr. Adrian." Adrian walked toward her. He took the picture. His expression became solemn. "Let me understand this." Ellie nodded seriously. Adrian pointed to the purple rabbit. "He owns the forest, yes. Does he pay taxes?" Ellie frowned. "What are taxes exactly?" Rosa turned away so he would not see her smile. Maddie shook her head. "You are teaching her terrible things." "I asked a reasonable question. You accused a rabbit of tax evasion." Adrian looked at Ellie. "Did I?" Ellie whispered yes. Adrian placed the drawing beside the espresso machine. "I withdraw the accusation." His phone vibrated in his pocket. He ignored it. That caught Maddie's attention. Adrian Cole almost never ignored his phone. He poured coffee and glanced at the screen only after the second vibration. Maddie checked her own phone at the same time. Her expression tightened. Adrian noticed. "School." She looked up. "What's your face?" Maddie glanced at the message again. They pushed the reopening back. "How long?" 3 more days. Rosa gave her a sympathetic look. Ellie continued eating strawberries, unaware that 3 more days without preschool created an entire problem for her mother. Adrian took a sip of coffee. "You need the time off, I can manage." That was not the question. Maddie lowered her voice. "I need the hours." There was no self-pity in the answer. That was one of the things Adrian respected about her. Maddie never asked him to rescue her from a problem. Sometimes he suspected she would rather struggle quietly than allow anyone to see how hard she was working to keep everything together. He looked at Ellie. The little girl had placed a strawberry on the rabbit's head. Then she stays here. Maddie blinked. Mr. Cole, this house has 32 rooms. It is your wedding week. It survived my father. It can survive a 3-year-old. Rosa coughed into her hand. Maddie caught the smile she was trying to hide. Adrian pointed at Rosa. I heard that. You heard nothing. 20 years in this house and suddenly everyone is brave. Ellie looked up. I'm brave. Adrian nodded. Yes, you are. Maddie reached for her daughter's bowl. Finish eating before your bravery becomes another excuse not to have breakfast. Ellie took another bite. The kitchen settled again. For a few seconds, Adrian simply stood there drinking coffee while Maddie packed Ellie's crayons into a small canvas pouch. There was nothing dramatic about the moment. No tension, no warning, no reason for anyone to remember it. That was how ordinary life worked. The moments that felt safest were rarely marked as important until something came along and changed the meaning of them. Footsteps approached from the hall. Rosa glanced toward the doorway first. Vivian Carrington entered, carrying a cream leather folder and a phone. She was dressed in tailored ivory trousers and a soft cashmere sweater. Her dark hair fell neatly over one shoulder. Even at 8 in the morning, she looked prepared to be photographed. Her eyes found Adrian immediately. There you are. She crossed the room and kissed him. Adrian rested one hand briefly at her waist. Morning. You disappeared. I came for coffee. You have coffee in the study. This one tastes better. Rosa raised an eyebrow. Vivian laughed. Then she noticed Ellie. Her entire face brightened. Oh my God. She walked closer. You must be Ellie. Ellie looked at her mother before answering. Maddie nodded. Ellie turned back. Yes. Vivian crouched beside the stool. I have heard so much about you. Ellie studied her. Vivian touched one finger lightly to the rabbit. And who is this Mr. Rabbit? Very formal. He owns the forest. Vivian smiled. Does he? Ellie nodded. Adrian picked up his coffee. Do not ask about the taxes. Vivian laughed. For a moment, everything about her seemed effortless, warm, elegant, kind. Maddie relaxed. Even Ellie offered Vivian the purple crayon. Vivian accepted it like the gift mattered. Thank you. Adrian's phone rang. This time he looked at the screen. His expression changed. Business. He stepped toward the glass doors leading to the terrace. I need to take this. Vivian rose. Adrian answered as he walked outside. The glass door closed behind him. The sound of his voice became muted. Vivian remained still for a second. Then she placed the purple crayon on the counter. Her smile disappeared. Not slowly, not naturally. It simply left. She looked at the crayons scattered beside Ellie, then at the small bowl of strawberries, then at Maddie. To be clear, this is temporary. Maddie paused. Yes, ma'am. I do not want the formal rooms turned into a daycare. They will not be. And keep her away from the West Hall. The florist is bringing in arrangements this afternoon. Of course. Vivian looked at Ellie. The child was staring at her. Vivian smiled again, but this time the expression never reached her eyes. Children touch things. Maddie's hand moved instinctively to Ellie's shoulder. She will stay with me. Good. The glass door opened. Adrian stepped back inside. Vivian turned toward him. Her face warmed immediately. Everything okay? Adrian slid his phone into his pocket. Nothing that cannot wait. Vivian moved beside him. Good. I stole your morning. You scheduled my morning. Same thing. He smiled. Ellie watched them. Her eyes moved from Vivian's face to Adrian's, then back again. She said nothing. By noon, the estate had become a different place. Florists carried boxes through the main entrance. Caterers moved between the service hall and ballroom. 2 men from the lighting company argued quietly near the staircase. Music drifted from the drawing room where a string quartet tested arrangements for the ceremony. Every table had a plan. Every candle had a place. Every flower had been approved. Vivian moved through it all with a folder pressed against her chest, answering questions before anyone finished asking them. She was good at this. Maddie could understand why Adrian admired her. Vivian noticed details. She remembered names. She thanked people in front of Adrian. She never raised her voice where guests might hear. From across the entrance hall, Adrian watched her speak to the florist and smiled. Claire Cole stood beside him. She followed his gaze. You happy? Adrian glanced at her. Yes. Claire waited. That quick, what answer were you hoping for? I was asking. You were investigating. Claire crossed her arms. She and Adrian shared the same dark eyes, but where his face was controlled, hers was more expressive. You are getting married in a week. Sisters are allowed to ask questions. You have been asking questions for 6 months. Maybe you are difficult to interview. Adrian looked back toward Vivian. She laughed at something the florist said. I am happy. Claire nodded. She wanted to leave it there. She almost did. Then she said, marriage does not turn people into who you hope they are. Adrian's expression changed. The warmth disappeared. Claire, I did not say anything about Vivian. You did not have to. Claire looked toward the windows. A muscle tightened in her jaw. Years earlier, she had made a mistake, not a small one. Adrian had been dating a woman named Sophie, a corporate attorney from New York. Claire had become convinced Sophie was passing private family information to a journalist. She confronted Adrian. He defended Sophie. Claire pushed harder. The accusation spread. Within days, Sophie was gone. Months later, Adrian learned the leak had come from a business associate. Claire had apologized. Adrian had accepted it. Neither of them had forgotten. I learned my lesson, Claire said quietly. Adrian looked at her. Did you? Yes, then trust me. Claire met his eyes. That is exactly what I am trying to do. He studied her for another moment. Then his phone buzzed again. He walked away. Claire stayed where she was. Across the hall, Vivian continued talking to the florist. A waiter approached with a tray of samples. Vivian smiled. Adrian disappeared around the corner. The waiter said something. Claire could not hear the words, but she saw Vivian's expression change. Her shoulders stiffened. Her mouth flattened. She leaned toward the waiter and spoke. The young man lowered his eyes. Vivian pointed at the tray, then toward the service corridor. The waiter nodded quickly and walked away. Claire stared after him. Vivian turned. She saw Claire. For one beat, neither woman moved. Then Vivian smiled. Claire. Claire returned the smile. Everything all right, perfect. Vivian lifted her folder. Wedding week. Of course. Vivian walked past her. Claire watched until she disappeared. That afternoon, Maddie carried freshly pressed linens toward the bridal suite. Ellie followed several steps behind, dragging Mr. Rabbit by one ear. Stay close. I am close. Closer. Ellie hurried until she was beside her mother. The bridal suite occupied the east side of the second floor. 3 dresses hung near the windows. Shoes lined the carpet. Boxes of jewelry sat open on a velvet bench. Vivian stood before a mirror comparing 2 veils. Maddie placed the linens on a chair. These are ready. Vivian held up one veil. Where is the cathedral veil? Maddie looked toward the garment rack. That is the one marked for Saturday. Vivian lowered it. No. Maddie paused. I checked the label this morning. Vivian turned. Are you correcting me? The room became quiet. Maddie softened her voice. No, ma'am. I only meant that this was the one listed on the schedule. Vivian walked toward her. You have a habit of explaining yourself. Maddie held still. I apologize. Vivian stopped very close. Then her hand closed around Maddie's wrist. Her fingers tightened. Not enough to create a scene. Enough to make Maddie inhale sharply. Vivian's voice stayed calm. When I tell you something is wrong, I do not need a defense. I need it fixed. Maddie stared at her. Yes, ma'am. Vivian squeezed once more. Good. Outside the half-open door, Ellie stood frozen. Her rabbit hung from her hand. Her eyes were fixed on her mother's wrist. Footsteps sounded from the far end of the corridor. Vivian released Maddie. Adrian appeared. Vivian turned toward him. The change was immediate. She lifted the veil and laughed. Maddie just saved me. Adrian approached. From what apparently I almost chose the wrong veil. Maddie said nothing. Adrian looked at the fabric. You can tell the difference. No, Vivian smiled. Exactly why I need people who can. Adrian glanced at Maddie. Good thing someone in this house knows what they are doing. Maddie forced a smile. Yes, sir. Adrian placed his hand against Vivian's back and guided her toward the window. They began talking about the ceremony. Maddie gathered the empty linen basket. Ellie followed her into the hallway. The moment they were alone, Ellie reached for her mother's wrist. Maddie pulled her sleeve down. "Come on." Ellie did not move. "Mommy." "Yes, did that hurt?" Maddie looked toward the bridal suite, then at her daughter. "No." Ellie stared at her. Maddie knew immediately that the lie had failed. That evening, wind moved through the bare trees behind the cottage where Maddie and Ellie lived on the edge of the estate. The cottage was small, but warm. 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, a porch facing the woods. Maddie sat on the edge of Ellie's bed folding tiny shirts while Ellie arranged 3 stuffed animals beneath the blanket. Mr. Rabbit received the pillow. "Why did Miss Vivi squeeze you?" Maddie's hand stopped. She was stressed. "Why wedding things?" Ellie frowned. "Did it hurt?" Maddie continued folding. "She did not mean anything. That is not what I asked." Maddie looked up. For a 3-year-old, Ellie had an exhausting talent for refusing bad answers. Maddie placed the shirt beside her. "Sometimes grown-ups get upset. Mr. Adrian does not squeeze you. No. Rosa does not squeeze you. No. Then why does Miss Vivi?" Maddie took a breath. She moved closer and tucked a strand of hair behind Ellie's ear. "Listen to me. You do not need to worry about things between adults. But you were scared." The words landed softly. Maddie's face changed. "I was not scared." Ellie looked at her mother's sleeve, then back into her eyes. "She only does it when he leaves." Maddie went still. Outside, wind pushed against the window. A branch scratched lightly against the glass. Maddie had noticed Vivian's moods. She had noticed the sharp comments, the sudden coldness. But hearing the pattern from her daughter made it feel different. Intentional, calculated. She lowered her voice. "Ellie, I want you to stay away from Miss Vivian unless I am with you." "Why?" "Because I said so." Ellie flinched. Maddie immediately regretted the sharpness. She pulled her daughter close. "I am sorry." Ellie rested her head against Maddie's shoulder. For a while, neither spoke. Then Ellie whispered, "Can I tell Mr. Adrian?" Maddie's arms tightened around her. "No." "Why?" "Because you do not understand everything that is happening. She hurt you." "I am fine." But she did. Maddie closed her eyes. She thought about preschool payments, groceries, insurance, the cottage provided with her job, the years she had spent rebuilding a life after her husband died. She thought about Adrian, about the man who had treated her fairly for 4 years, about the woman he loved, about how quickly loyalty could become accusation. She kissed the top of Ellie's head. "This is something I will handle." Ellie pulled back. How Maddie gave her a smile she hoped looked stronger than she felt. "I will handle it." Ellie studied her for another second. Then she lay down. Maddie switched off the lamp. At the doorway, she looked back. Ellie had already closed her eyes. Mr. Rabbit was tucked beneath her chin. Maddie quietly pulled the door almost shut. Then she looked down at her wrist. A faint red mark remained where Vivian's fingers had been. Maddie rubbed it once. From the main house visible through the trees, dozens of warm windows glowed against the winter darkness. Somewhere inside, Adrian Cole was preparing to marry a woman he believed he knew. Maddie lowered her sleeve over the mark. Then she locked the cottage door. The next morning, Maddie woke before the alarm. For several seconds, she lay still in the darkness and listened to Ellie breathing in the room across the hall. The cottage was quiet, safe. At least it felt that way before sunrise. Then she remembered the red mark on her wrist. She turned her hand beneath the blanket. The mark had faded overnight, but not completely. Maddie stared at it until the numbers on the clock changed. 5:47. She got out of bed. By 6:30, the Cole estate was already awake. Coffee machines hissed in the kitchen. Delivery trucks rolled through the service gate. Rosa stood at the center island reviewing a clipboard while 2 caterers argued about refrigerator space. Ellie sat in the corner with a bowl of cereal and Mr. Rabbit tucked beneath one arm. Maddie kept her sleeves buttoned. Rosa noticed. She said nothing until they were alone in the pantry. Then she closed the door. "What happened?" Maddie looked at her. "Nothing." Rosa waited. Maddie sighed. "Vivian grabbed my wrist yesterday." Rosa's expression did not change. "How hard? Hard enough." Did anyone see? Maddie hesitated. "Ellie." Rosa closed her eyes for a moment. "That is not what I meant. I know." Maddie leaned against the shelf behind her. She got angry about the veil. Adrian came down the hall and suddenly she was smiling again. Rosa looked toward the pantry door. "Has she done it before?" Not like that. Has she spoken to you like that before? Maddie did not answer. Rosa understood. She has. Maddie lowered her voice. She talks differently when he is gone. Rosa gave a humorless smile. So you noticed. Maddie stared at her. You knew I knew she had two voices. Why did no one tell me you work with her more than I do? That is not what I meant. Rosa set the clipboard on a shelf. Maddie continued. If you knew something was wrong, why did you not tell Adrian? Rosa finally looked directly at her. And say what? That she humiliates people. Do you have proof? Maddie looked away. Rosa continued. That she is rude. She grabbed me. Do you have proof of that? My daughter saw it. Rosa's voice softened. Your daughter is 3. Maddie's jaw tightened. She knows what she saw. I believe that. Then why are you talking like this? Because believing something and proving it are not the same thing. Maddie folded her arms. You think Adrian would fire me for telling him? I think Adrian would listen. Then what are you afraid of? Rosa looked at the door again. Not afraid of being overheard. Afraid of the answer. Adrian is fair, she said. But fairness requires facts. Maddie said nothing. Rosa lowered her voice. Men like Adrian spend their lives surrounded by accusations. Business partners accuse each other. Employees accuse managers. Family accuses family. Everyone wants him to choose a side. This is not business. No, it is worse. Maddie stared at her. He loves her. The words settled between them. Rosa picked up her clipboard. If you ever go to him, make sure you know what happens if he chooses hers. The pantry door opened. Ellie stood there. Mommy Maddie immediately changed her expression. What is it? I am done. With breakfast, Ellie nodded. Maddie reached for her hand. Good, come on. As they walked back toward the kitchen, Maddie felt Rosa watching them. She did not turn around. By 10, the house was filled with strangers, wedding coordinators, florists, caterers, musicians, a photographer touring possible locations, a woman from the bakery carrying a white box as if it contained state secrets. Vivian moved from room to room in a cream dress and low heels. Her voice was warm whenever Adrian was near. She thanked people, touched their arms, remembered names. At one point, she stopped beside Daniel Reed, one of the younger servers hired for the wedding. You are Daniel, right? His face brightened. Yes, ma'am. I remembered. He smiled. Adrian stood several feet away speaking with Luke. Vivian looked at the tray Daniel was carrying. Those are beautiful. Thank you. She took one champagne glass from the tray. Adrian glanced over. Vivian lifted the glass toward him. You approve? Adrian raised an eyebrow. It is 10 in the morning. That was not my question. He almost smiled. Then Luke handed him a phone. Adrian listened. His expression hardened. I will take it upstairs. He left the room. Vivian waited until he disappeared around the corner. Then she looked at Daniel. The warmth vanished. There is lipstick on this glass. Daniel blinked. I am sorry. Vivian held it closer. A faint pink mark touched the rim. It was from the tasting table. You served it, I did not realize. No, you did not. Daniel put the tray down. I will replace it. Vivian stepped closer. If you hand a used glass to one of my guests on Saturday, you will never work another private event in this city. Daniel's face went pale. I understand. Do you? Yes. Vivian looked at the tray. Carry it. He reached for it. Both. Daniel frowned. Vivian pointed to the second tray on the table. It was loaded with bottles and clean glasses. Take both to the ballroom. That is a lot of weight. Then perhaps your hands need practice. Daniel looked toward the doorway. Nobody important stood there, only Maddie and Ellie. Daniel lifted both trays. His arms trembled under the weight. Vivian watched him walk away. Ellie looked at Maddie. Maddie quietly shook her head. Not now. Ellie lowered her eyes. Vivian noticed. What? Maddie looked at her. Nothing. Vivian smiled faintly. That seems to be everyone's favorite word this week. She turned and left. Later, Maddie found Daniel near the service elevator rubbing his shoulder. You okay? He looked embarrassed. I am fine. You should put ice on that. I said I am fine. Maddie understood the tone. It was not anger. It was humiliation. She lowered her voice. She has done that to you before. Daniel looked down the hallway. Forget it. Daniel. He shook his head. I need this job. So do I. That is exactly why we should stop talking. He walked away. Maddie watched him go. Behind her, Ellie said quietly, "He is scared too." Maddie turned. The little girl was standing beside a cart of folded napkins. Maddie did not know what to say, so she said the easiest thing. "Come help me count these." Ellie did not move. "Mommy, what? Everybody is scared." Maddie looked at her daughter. Then she looked down the empty hallway. She wished Ellie were wrong. That afternoon, Claire arrived carrying garment bags. She found Adrian in the library with 2 men from his legal team. The conversation stopped when she entered. One of the men closed a folder. Adrian dismissed them with a nod. Claire waited until the door shut. "You ever leave this room occasionally? I brought the tux for the rehearsal dinner. Put it somewhere. Your gratitude is overwhelming." Adrian returned to the papers on his desk. Claire did not leave. He looked up. "What nothing? You have a very loud version of nothing." Claire walked toward the window. Outside, staff carried floral arrangements toward the west terrace. "What happens after the wedding?" Adrian leaned back. "What kind of question is that?" "A normal one. You have never asked a normal question in your life." Claire gave him a look. "Does Vivian move in here full-time? She already spends most nights here. That is not what I asked." Adrian's expression cooled. "Claire, I am asking about the house. The house will still be here. And the staff." His eyes narrowed. "What about them?" Claire felt the moment opening. The exact opening she had been waiting for. She could say it. She could tell him about the waiter, about Vivian's face changing, about the strange feeling she had whenever Adrian left a room. Instead, she heard his voice from years ago. "You were wrong. You did not trust me. You made it worse." Claire looked away. Nothing. Adrian stood. "You did not come in here to ask me whether the house survives marriage." She folded her arms. "Maybe I wanted to know if you were changing anything, such as staffing. No, Vivian knows that." "Why would she not?" Claire looked at him. Adrian saw something in her face. "What are you not saying?" She almost spoke. Then she smiled without humor. "You know what? Forget it." His jaw tightened. "Do not do that. Do what? Walk into my office with half a warning and then pretend it is nothing. I said forget it. Then do not start." Claire flinched. There it was, the old wound. She nodded once. "Fine." She turned and left. Adrian watched the door after it closed. In the hallway, Claire stopped. Her hand tightened around the garment bag. She hated herself a little for staying quiet. But fear did not always look like trembling. Sometimes it looked like a person convincing herself she needed more evidence. Claire headed toward the library stairs. Halfway down the corridor, she heard Vivian's voice. Not the warm voice, the other one. Claire stopped. Vivian stood near the linen room with Maddie. Neither woman had noticed her. "You need to understand something before Saturday," Vivian said. Maddie held a stack of folded napkins against her chest. "I understand my job." Vivian stepped closer. "Do you?" "Yes. Because after the wedding, things will be different." Maddie's posture stiffened. "How, when I become Mrs. Cole, I will decide how this house is run," Maddie answered carefully. "Mr. Cole has always handled staffing." Vivian smiled. "Mr. Cole has never had a wife?" Maddie said nothing. Vivian touched the edge of the napkin stack. "I do not like people who confuse familiarity with importance." Maddie's face remained composed. "I have never done that." "Good." Vivian's voice became almost pleasant. "Then we will have no problem." Claire stepped around the corner. "Vivian?" Vivian turned. The transformation came instantly. "Claire." Maddie looked at Claire. For 1 second, something passed between them. A question. Did you hear that Claire did not know how much her face revealed? Vivian smiled. "I was just telling Maddie how grateful I am for everything she is doing." Claire looked at Maddie. Maddie lowered her eyes. "Of course." Vivian touched Claire's arm as she passed. "Come find me later. I need your opinion on the dinner seating." She walked away. Claire remained still. Maddie started to leave. "Maddie." She stopped. Claire looked down the empty hallway. "Is everything all right?" The question was quiet. Maddie gave the answer Claire expected. "Yes." Claire looked at her. "Are you sure?" Maddie's fingers tightened around the napkins. For a second, the truth seemed to rise into her throat. Then she remembered Rosa. He loves her. She remembered Ellie. She remembered the cottage. The insurance. The paycheck. Yes. Claire nodded slowly. Maddie walked away. Two women who both knew something was wrong had just given each other permission to keep pretending. By evening, the tension in the house had begun to live in small things. A door closing too carefully. A conversation stopping when Vivian entered. Staff members looking towards the hallway before answering questions. Maddie noticed Daniel volunteering for work in rooms where Adrian was present. She noticed Rosa no longer sending junior staff alone to the bridal wing. She noticed Ellie following her more closely than usual. During rehearsal, the dining room glowed beneath dozens of candles. Vivian stood at the head of the table reviewing centerpieces. She frowned. These are cream. The florist looked confused. They are ivory. They are cream. Maddie stood nearby checking place cards. Vivian turned toward her. You approved these? No, ma'am. Who did the florist confirm them yesterday? Vivian looked at the florist, then back at Maddie. I asked you to verify everything. I verified the delivery schedule. That is not what I asked. Maddie kept her voice calm. I was not responsible for the flower color. Vivian stared at her. The florist pretended to examine another arrangement. Nobody wanted to be part of the conversation. Then Vivian reached for a small glass vase. She pushed it. Not hard, just enough. The vase slipped from the edge of the table. It struck the floor. Glass shattered. Water spread across the polished wood. White flowers scattered at Maddie's feet. Everyone froze. Vivian looked down, then at Maddie. Well, Maddie stared at her. Vivian raised one eyebrow. Clean it. Maddie slowly crouched. The florist looked uncomfortable. I can get someone. Vivian did not look at her. Maddie has it. Maddie gathered the flowers first, then the larger pieces of glass. She heard small footsteps. Mommy. Her stomach tightened. Ellie stood in the doorway. Stay there. Ellie looked at the broken vase. Vivian turned toward her. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Ellie said, You broke it. The florist looked down. Maddie's heart began to pound. Vivian crouched until she was closer to Ellie's height. No, sweetheart. Ellie pointed. You pushed it. Vivian smiled. It fell. You touched it. Vivian's eyes became very still. You see things you do not understand. Ellie took one step backward. Maddie rose too quickly. A sharp edge sliced across her finger. She sucked in a breath. Blood appeared. Ellie's face crumpled. Mommy? Vivian stood. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Adrian entered. He looked from Maddie's bleeding hand to the broken glass. What happened? Vivian answered first. Poor Maddie dropped a vase. Maddie stared at her. Ellie opened her mouth. Maddie spoke quickly. Ellie, go wait in the kitchen. Ellie looked at her mother. She did not understand. You said she did not. Maddie's face flushed. Kitchen. Now. The little girl's eyes filled. She turned and walked away. Adrian crouched beside Maddie. Let me see your hand. It is fine. You are bleeding. He took a clean napkin from the table and wrapped it around her finger. Vivian watched. Maddie could feel her eyes. Adrian looked toward the broken vase. You sure you are okay? Yes. Vivian slipped one hand through his arm. We have replacements. Adrian glanced at her. That was not what I asked. Something flickered in Vivian's expression. Then she smiled. Of course. Maddie stood. I will clean this. Adrian looked at the florist. Get someone else. Vivian said Adrian, she is already here. He turned toward her. And she is bleeding. The room became quiet. Vivian held his gaze, then softened. You are right. Adrian walked away with her. Maddie remained beside the shattered vase. She looked toward the doorway where Ellie had disappeared. For the first time, shame hurt worse than fear. That night, Ellie refused dessert. Maddie knew something was wrong because Ellie never refused chocolate pudding. They sat together at the small kitchen table inside the cottage. Mr. Rabbit occupied the chair between them. Ellie pushed her spoon through the pudding without eating. Maddie watched her. Are you mad at me? No answer. Ellie. The little girl looked up. You lied. Maddie swallowed. I know. Miss Vivi broke it. Yes. You told Mr. Adrian you did. I did not say I broke it. You did not tell him she did. Maddie looked down at her hands. Her cut finger was covered with a bandage. No. Why? Maddie leaned back. She had spent all day finding explanations for herself. None of them sounded good in front of a child. Sometimes telling the truth can make bad things happen. Ellie frowned. worse than hurting Maddie, could not answer. Ellie pushed the pudding away. Mr. Adrian would make her stop. You do not know that. He is the boss. Maddie almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because only a child could make power sound that simple. He is also going to marry her. So Maddie looked at her daughter. You really are 3. I am almost 4. 3. Ellie crossed her arms. Maddie reached across the table. Listen to me. Mr. Adrian cares about us, but people do not always believe things just because they are true. Ellie stared at her. Do you believe me? Yes. Then he will too. Maddie felt something break inside her. She wished she still believed the world worked that way. She got up and came around the table. Then she knelt beside Ellie. You are not responsible for fixing this, but you are scared. Maddie closed her eyes. When she opened them, Ellie was still watching. Maddie whispered, a little. Ellie touched her bandaged finger. Because of Miss Vivi, yes. It was the first honest answer Maddie had given her all day. Ellie leaned forward and wrapped both arms around her neck. Maddie held her tightly. After a while, she said, I need you to promise me something. Ellie pulled back. What? Do not talk to Mr. Adrian about this. Ellie's face changed. Why? Because I need to handle it. You said that before, I know, and you did not. Maddie looked at her. There was no accusation in Ellie's voice, only fact. That somehow made it worse. I am trying. Ellie looked down. Maddie touched her cheek. Promise me. Ellie stayed silent. Ellie, I do not want to. Please. The child looked at her mother's bandaged finger. Then finally whispered, Okay. Maddie kissed her forehead, but the promise did not make her feel safer. It made her feel ashamed. The following day, Vivian became careful. Too careful. She was charming to staff whenever Ellie was nearby. She brought Maddie coffee. She complimented Rosa's table settings. She even apologized to Daniel for being difficult during a rehearsal. Adrian witnessed all of it. At lunch, he told Vivian, You seem relaxed. She smiled. I decided I was becoming unbearable. You shocking, I know. He kissed her temple. Across the room, Maddie watched. Vivian caught her eye over Adrian's shoulder. The smile remained. But the message was clear. See how easy this is. That evening, Maddie finished organizing the bridal suite and returned to the service corridor. Vivian was waiting. Alone. She held a white envelope. For you. Maddie did not take it. What is it? A wedding bonus. I do not need one. Vivian smiled. That was not a question. Maddie accepted the envelope reluctantly. It was thick. Too thick. She opened it. Cash. Several $1,000s. Maddie looked up. This is too much. No, it is appropriate. For what? For your work. Maddie placed the envelope on a console table. I cannot take this. Vivian's expression cooled. Why? Because I do not want it. Vivian stepped closer. You should. Maddie said nothing. I know children repeat things, Vivian continued. Maddie went still. My daughter does not lie. I did not say she did. You implied it. Children misunderstand. Maddie stared at her. She understood the vase. Vivian's eyes hardened. That was an accident. No, it was not. Silence. For the first time, Maddie had said it directly. Vivian looked almost amused. Careful. Maddie's heart pounded. Vivian continued. You have a comfortable arrangement here. Maddie said nothing. A cottage, health insurance, a flexible schedule because of your daughter. Those are part of my employment. Exactly. Vivian took another step. Employment changes. Maddie's face tightened. Mr. Cole handles staffing. Vivian smiled. Until Saturday. Maddie looked at her. Is that a threat? Do not be dramatic. You mentioned my daughter. I mentioned your job. You know they are connected. Vivian tilted her head. You are smarter than you look. Maddie felt anger rise through the fear. My daughter is not part of this. Then keep her out of it. The hallway seemed to narrow around them. Maddie looked at the envelope. Take your money. Vivian's smile disappeared. I am trying to make this easy. No, you are trying to make me quiet. Vivian stepped closer until only inches separated them. Maybe those are the same thing. Maddie held her ground. Vivian lowered her voice. Saturday changes everything. What does that mean? It means this house becomes mine too. She glanced toward the windows overlooking the grounds. Beyond the trees, the lights of Maddie's cottage glowed in the darkness. And I do not like unpredictability in my home. Maddie followed her gaze. Her stomach dropped. Vivian looked back at her. Take the bonus. Maddie left it on the table. No. Then she walked away. She did not run. She refused to give Vivian that. But the second she reached the service stairs, her hands began to shake. When she returned to the cottage, Ellie was asleep on the sofa beneath a blanket. A children's movie played silently on the television. Mr. Rabbit rested against her chest. Maddie stood in the doorway for a long time. Then she went to the bedroom. She pulled a suitcase from the closet. She opened it on the bed. 2 sweaters, 3 pairs of jeans, Ellie's pajamas, documents from the desk drawer, her husband's photograph. She stopped when she picked it up. In the picture he was laughing. Young, alive. Maddie sat on the edge of the bed. I am trying, she whispered. The photograph offered no answer. She packed it anyway. An hour later, she carried the suitcase into the closet and closed the door. She would work the wedding. She would collect her final pay. Then she would leave, quietly, no accusation, no confrontation, no scene. That was the plan she could survive. She stepped into the living room and lifted Ellie from the sofa. The little girl stirred against her shoulder. Mommy, I have you. Ellie's eyes stayed closed. Are we going somewhere? Maddie froze. Not tonight. Ellie tightened one arm around her neck. Okay. Maddie carried her toward the bedroom. Outside, across the dark lawn, the Cole estate glowed beneath strings of wedding lights. Every window looked warm from a distance. Inside those walls, hundreds of flowers waited to be arranged. Champagne waited to be opened. A wedding dress waited in its room. And Maddie had finally decided that silence would cost her less than staying. She tucked Ellie into bed. Then she sat beside her until the little girl fell completely still. On the nightstand, Mr. Rabbit stared toward the door. Maddie reached over and turned off the lamp. In the darkness, Ellie's small voice came one last time. Mommy. Yes. You promise she will not hurt you tomorrow. Maddie looked toward the shadow of her daughter. Her throat tightened. She wanted to say yes. Instead, she reached for Ellie's hand beneath the blanket. I will stay close. Ellie squeezed her fingers. Maddie stayed beside the bed long after her daughter fell asleep. By morning, the estate would be filled with music, white roses, black cars, and people dressed for a wedding. For now, there was only the quiet cottage, the packed suitcase hidden in the closet, and a mother holding her daughter's hand because it was the only promise she knew she could keep. By 6 in the morning, the Cole estate was already awake. Snow from the night before still rested along the stone walls and the lower branches of the pines. The sky over Lake Michigan was a cold gray, and the first black cars had begun moving through the gates before sunrise. Inside the house, nothing was quiet. Florists carried white roses through the entrance hall. Caterers moved between the kitchen and ballroom. Security checked names against guest lists. A string quartet rehearsed behind closed doors. Every polished surface reflected candlelight flowers or someone hurrying toward a deadline. Maddie crossed the service hall with a tray of coffee in both hands. She had slept for less than 3 hours. The packed suitcase remained hidden in the cottage closet. Her plan had not changed. Finish the wedding shift, collect Ellie, leave before dawn the next morning. No confrontation, no accusations, no final conversation with Vivian. Maddie had spent half the night telling herself that leaving was not surrender. It was survival. She reached the kitchen and set the tray beside Rosa. Rosa looked at her face. You look terrible. Good morning to you too. I mean it. I know. Rosa lowered her voice. Did you sleep enough? That means no. Maddie reached for another tray. Rosa caught her wrist, not hard, just enough to stop her. Maddie immediately flinched. Rosa released her. Her expression changed. Sorry, it is fine. No, it is not. Maddie looked toward the doorway. Staff passed outside. No one was listening. Rosa asked, What happened last night? Nothing. Rosa stared at her. Maddie sighed. She gave me money. What a wedding bonus. How much too much? Rosa's face hardened. And then she told me children repeat things. Rosa understood immediately. She knows Ellie saw something. Yes. What did you say I gave the money back? Rosa closed her eyes. Maddie, what was I supposed to do? not challenge her the night before she marries Adrian. I am leaving. Rosa looked at her sharply. When tomorrow morning? And your job, I will find another one. The cottage I know. Insurance I know. Rosa studied her. Maddie continued before she could speak. I cannot keep asking Ellie to pretend she is not seeing what she is seeing. Rosa's expression softened, and Adrian Maddie looked away. What about him? You are leaving without telling him. I am leaving because I do not want to make him choose. He deserves to know what is happening under his roof. Maybe. That is not an answer. Maddie looked toward the kitchen windows. Beyond, the glass workers were setting up heaters on the terrace. She said quietly, he loves her. Rosa said nothing. Maddie continued, and in a few hours she becomes his wife. I have no proof. I have a 3-year-old who saw things. I have a bruise that is almost gone. I have a broken vase that everyone thinks I dropped. She knows she broke it. That is not evidence. Rosa folded her arms. You sound like me now. Maybe you were right. Rosa looked almost angry at that. No, I was afraid. Maddie met her eyes. Rosa lowered her voice. There is a difference. Before Maddie could answer, Ellie appeared in the doorway wearing a pale yellow dress under a small cardigan. Mr. Rabbit hung from one hand. Her hair had been brushed into 2 soft curls at the sides of her face. Maddie smiled automatically. There you are. Ellie walked toward her. Rosa said I could have pancakes. Rosa said 1 pancake. Ellie held up 2 fingers, 1 big one. Maddie laughed despite herself. Rosa shook her head. A negotiator. Ellie looked at her mother, then at the dark circles beneath her eyes. Are we moving today? Maddie's smile disappeared. Rosa glanced at her. Maddie crouched. Why would you ask that I saw the suitcase? Maddie had forgotten the closet door had been partly open. Ellie continued. You packed my blue pajamas. Maddie touched her daughter's cheek. We might go somewhere for a little while. Because of Miss Vivi, Rosa turned away, giving them privacy. Maddie lowered her voice. Not because of one person. Ellie stared at her. Because she is mean. Ellie, she is. Maddie took a breath. Today is a very important day for Mr. Adrian. Ellie looked toward the ceiling as though Adrian might be somewhere above them. He is getting married. Yes, to her. Maddie heard the judgment in those 2 words. She almost smiled. Instead, she said, I need you to stay close to me today. Ellie nodded. No wandering. Okay. No going upstairs by yourself. Okay. And if Miss Vivian talks to you, you come find me. Ellie looked at her mother carefully. Why Maddie did not answer, Ellie already knew. At 8:30, Adrian came downstairs. The house changed when he entered a room. It was not because he raised his voice. He almost never did. It was because people noticed him without trying. He wore dark trousers and a white shirt, his tuxedo jacket still upstairs. Luke followed him with a tablet while describing security changes for the guest arrival. Adrian listened while adjusting one cuff. No press inside the gates. Already handled. Phones. Guests can keep them. Staff have the usual policy. East entrance reserved for family. Adrian nodded. He stopped when he saw Ellie sitting at the breakfast counter. You clean up well. Ellie looked down at her yellow dress. Mommy said I cannot get syrup on it. Adrian looked at the empty plate. Did you know? Rosa said from the stove. She came close. Ellie frowned at her. Adrian almost smiled. Then he noticed Maddie across the kitchen. She was holding a list but not reading it. He studied her. You all right? Maddie looked up. Yes. You sure? Yes. He held her gaze another second. Maddie had worked for him long enough to know when he was considering whether to press. Then Luke said his name. Adrian turned back. Maddie exhaled. Ellie watched her. Adrian walked away. The little girl whispered, You lied again. Maddie closed her eyes. Eat your fruit. By 10, the bridal wing had become the center of the house. Makeup artists, hairstylists, dress assistants, flowers, boxes, perfume, steam from garment machines. Vivian sat before a mirror in a silk robe while a stylist pinned her hair. She looked calm, almost peaceful. Maddie entered carrying a tray of tea. Vivian saw her through the mirror. Set it there. Maddie placed the tray on the side table. Vivian watched her. The stylist asked, More volume, less. The woman adjusted the pins. Vivian looked at Maddie again. You can go. Maddie turned toward the door. Actually, she stopped. Vivian smiled at the stylist. Could you give us a minute? The stylist hesitated. Of course. The room emptied. Maddie remained near the door. Vivian rose slowly. Her silk robe whispered across the carpet. "Where is your daughter with Rosa?" "Good." Maddie said nothing. Vivian walked toward the tea. "I heard you were leaving." Maddie's chest tightened. "Who told you no one had to?" Vivian lifted the cup. "You have had the expression all morning. I am finishing my shift." And then, "That is private." Vivian took a sip. "You live on this property, for now." Vivian smiled. "So you are leaving." Maddie did not answer. Vivian set the cup down. "Interesting timing. I am not creating a scene. No. You are making a statement. I am going home with my daughter. This is your home." Maddie looked at her. "No, it is where I work." Something changed in Vivian's eyes. "Do not become self-righteous now." "I am not. You have spent 4 years in this house. Adrian trusts you. You have been given accommodations most staff would kill for. I have earned my position. I did not say you had not." Maddie started toward the door. Vivian said, "You will not ruin today." Maddie stopped. "I have no intention of ruining anything. Then we understand each other." Maddie reached for the handle. Vivian caught her wrist. Maddie inhaled sharply. The same wrist, the same place. Vivian's fingers tightened. "Do we?" Maddie looked down at her hand. Then slowly back at Vivian. "Let go of me." Vivian did not. Maddie's voice dropped. "Let go." Vivian stepped closer. "Do not mistake Adrian's kindness for protection." Maddie's heart pounded. "You are hurting me. Then remember it." Outside the room, a tiny shadow stopped. Ellie stood at the end of the hall. Mr. Rabbit hung from her hand. She had slipped away from Rosa while looking for her mother. The bridal suite door was not completely closed. Through the narrow opening, she saw Vivian's hand around Maddie's wrist. She saw her mother's face. Not angry, not confused, afraid. Vivian finally released her. Red finger marks appeared against Maddie's skin. Vivian lowered her voice. "Finish your shift. Keep your daughter quiet. Leave tomorrow if that is what you want." Maddie rubbed her wrist. "You really think becoming his wife gives you the right to treat people like this?" Vivian smiled. "I think becoming his wife means people will learn where the lines are." Maddie looked at her. And if Adrian knew, for the first time Vivian's expression sharpened. "He knows me." Maddie said quietly, "No, he knows who you are when he is in the room." Vivian stared at her. Neither woman noticed the small figure backing away from the door. Ellie walked quickly down the corridor, then faster. Her little shoes struck the polished floor in uneven taps. She passed florists, servers, security, guests beginning to arrive. She did not stop. Downstairs, Adrian stood near the West Hall with Claire. His tuxedo jacket was on now. Black, perfectly fitted. Claire adjusted his tie. "You are pulling it too tight. You complain when I help. You are trying to kill me before the ceremony. Very efficient." Adrian looked toward the staircase. "Where is Vivian upstairs?" That was a dangerous question. Claire smiled. Then Adrian saw Ellie. The child stood halfway down the hall. Her breathing was quick. Her eyes searched the room until they found him. "Mr. Adrian." He turned fully. Claire noticed the tone. Ellie walked toward him. Then she reached out and grabbed the edge of his jacket. Adrian crouched. "Hey." Ellie looked behind her, checking the hallway, checking the stairs, checking whether anyone had followed. Adrian's expression changed. "What happened?" Ellie leaned closer. "She hurts Mommy when you leave." The words were quiet. Adrian did not move. Claire's hand dropped from his tie. "What did you say?" Ellie squeezed Mr. Rabbit. "The pretty lady." Adrian's voice became very calm. Vivian Ellie nodded. Adrian looked toward the stairs, then back at her. "How does she hurt your mom?" Ellie reached for his wrist. Her tiny fingers closed around it. She squeezed, hard. "She does this." Adrian looked at her hand. Ellie released him. "She does it when you are gone." Claire stared at the child. Adrian asked, "Did you see that today?" Ellie nodded. "Where upstairs?" "Where upstairs, Miss Vivi's room." Adrian rose. At that moment Maddie appeared at the far end of the hall. Her eyes found Ellie. Then Adrian. Her face lost its color. "Ellie." The little girl turned. Maddie crossed the hall quickly. "I told you to stay with Rosa." Ellie looked up at her. She hurt you again. Maddie stopped. Adrian looked at Maddie's sleeve. It had been pulled low over her hand. Maddie. She did not look at him. Show me your wrist. It is nothing. Show me. Guests moved in the distant entrance hall. Adrian glanced toward Luke. Clear this corridor. Luke immediately stepped forward. Within seconds, staff and early guests were redirected toward the ballroom. Adrian opened the library door. Inside. Maddie hesitated. Claire entered first. Ellie stayed close to her mother. Once the door closed, Adrian turned to Maddie. Your wrist. Maddie stared at him. He did not repeat himself. Slowly, she pulled back her sleeve. Red marks circled the skin. Adrian's jaw tightened. Did Vivian do that? Maddie looked away. Claire inhaled softly. Adrian stepped closer. Maddie. Yes. The room went still. Ellie moved against her mother's leg. Adrian's voice remained controlled. When 10 minutes ago? Why she was angry? About what my leaving? Adrian frowned. You were leaving. Maddie closed her eyes briefly. After the wedding? Why? She looked at him. There were too many answers. Because I am afraid. Because I do not trust what happens after you marry her. Because I have asked my child to keep secrets for me. Because the woman you love knows exactly how much I have to lose. Maddie said I think it is better. For who? For Ellie. Adrian looked at the child, then at Maddie. How long has this been happening? Maddie said nothing. His voice sharpened slightly. How long she grabbed me earlier this week. Claire looked at Maddie. Adrian stared at her. You never said anything. No. Why? Maddie laughed once, but there was no humor in it. You are getting married today. That does not answer the question. It does. No, it does not. Maddie finally looked directly at him. And if I told you Adrian's expression changed? If you told me what? That the woman you love waits until you leave the room before she reminds your employees that they are beneath her. Claire closed her eyes. Adrian looked at her. You knew Claire swallowed not all of it, but something. Yes, Adrian turned back to Maddie. She continued. I have a daughter. I have bills, preschool, insurance. I live on your property. You think I would fire you for telling me the truth? I do not know what you would do. The answer stopped him. Maddie's eyes shone. I know you have been good to us. I know that. But goodness does not erase the fact that you are the man she is marrying and I am the woman cleaning the room after the wedding. Adrian stared at her. I cannot afford to accuse someone like Vivian and be wrong. And if you are right, Maddie looked down at Ellie. That is what scares me. A knock sounded. Before Adrian could answer, the library door opened. Vivian entered. She had changed into her wedding dress. White silk, long sleeves, no veil yet. For one strange second, no one spoke. She looked exactly like the woman a room full of guests had come to celebrate. Then she saw Maddie, Claire, Ellie, Adrian. Her eyes moved between them. What happened? Adrian said, did you grab Maddie's wrist? Vivian blinked. What today? She looked at Maddie. Then Ellie. Understanding flickered across her face. Oh. Adrian waited. Vivian's voice softened. This is what this is about, answer me. Vivian looked genuinely hurt. She almost dropped the tea tray. Maddie stared at her. That is a lie. Vivian turned. Maddie. No. Vivian looked back at Adrian. She turned too quickly. I caught her. You squeezed my wrist. I stopped you from falling. You told me to remember it. Vivian's eyes widened. I said no such thing. Ellie whispered, You did. Vivian looked at her. The room became colder. Adrian watched Vivian's face. She forced herself to soften. Sweetheart, I think you are confused. Ellie moved behind Maddie. I am not. Vivian looked at Adrian. Adrian, please. He did not speak. Vivian took a breath. I have been stressed. I know I have been short with people this week. If Maddie felt that I spoke harshly, I will apologize. Maddie said, This is not about your tone. I am trying to be reasonable. No, you are trying to make it sound smaller. Vivian's eyes sharpened. Adrian stepped between them. Enough. Vivian looked at him. You know me. He did not answer. Her face changed. You do know me. I know the person I have seen. That is insulting. Claire finally spoke. I have seen it too. Adrian turned toward her. Vivian froze. Claire continued. The way you speak to people when he leaves. Vivian gave a small laugh. Seriously, Claire held her ground. You change. Everyone changes when their fiancé is not in the room. Not like that. Vivian stared at her. This again. Claire's face tightened. Vivian turned to Adrian. She has never wanted this wedding. Claire stepped forward. That is not true. Really, you have been suspicious of me since the day we met. I was cautious. You were waiting to find something. Claire went silent. Vivian saw the opening. And now a child says something. Maddie is leaving. Claire suddenly remembers she has concerns and I am supposed to defend myself on my wedding day. Maddie shook her head. Nobody planned this. Vivian looked at her. Didn't they? Adrian's gaze sharpened. What does that mean? Vivian hesitated, then said, Has anyone asked why Maddie is doing this now? Maddie stared at her. What are you talking about? You have worked here for years. Yes, you have access to Adrian every day. Maddie's face changed. Stop, Vivian continued. Your daughter follows him around. He takes care of you. He lets her stay here. He gives you accommodations other staff do not have. Adrian's voice dropped. Vivian, I am asking a reasonable question. No, you are not. She looked at him. Then explain the timing. Maddie stepped backward as though physically struck. You think I want him? Vivian said nothing. That silence was deliberate. Maddie's eyes filled with disbelief. I was leaving. Exactly. Because of you, or because after today things change. Claire said, That is enough. Vivian turned toward her. Stay out of it. Claire did not move. Vivian looked back at Adrian. You cannot seriously consider stopping our wedding because a 3-year-old misunderstood something and 2 women who already dislike me decided to confirm it. Maddie's face flushed. I do not dislike you, Vivian laughed. That is your defense. My defense is that I wanted nothing from you. Adrian looked from one woman to the other. The room was filled with competing truths. Fear, anger, history, love, class, loyalty. He looked down at Ellie. The child was clutching Maddie's dress. She did not understand most of what had just been said, but she understood enough to look frightened. Adrian crouched in front of her. Ellie, she looked at him. Did your mom tell you to say any of this? Maddie inhaled sharply. Vivian watched. Ellie shook her head. No. Did Claire know? Did anyone know? Adrian nodded. Did you see Miss Vivian grab your mom today? Yes. Did your mom tell you not to tell me? Ellie looked at Maddie. Maddie closed her eyes. Ellie whispered, yes. Adrian rose. The answer hurt Maddie more than she expected. Vivian immediately seized on it. There. Maddie knew what Ellie was saying. She knew this could happen. Maddie turned on her. I told her not to tell him because I was trying to protect my job. Vivian shook her head. Convenient. Adrian looked at Luke. The security chief had been standing silently near the library door. Luke. Yes. Pull every camera covering the West Hall, East Hall, bridal wing entrance, dining room, service corridor, kitchen passage, and main staircase. Vivian went still. Adrian continued. Last 7 days. Luke nodded. I will need access authorization for the private hallway cameras. You have it. Vivian stared at Adrian. You are checking cameras? Yes. On our wedding day? Yes. Her voice broke. Do you understand what you are doing? Adrian looked at her. I am making sure I do. Vivian stepped closer. Adrian, look at me. He did, her eyes filled with tears. We have 200 people downstairs. Your family is here. My family is here. I know. The ceremony starts in less than 40 minutes. I know. You are humiliating me. No one outside this room knows anything. They will. Not from me. Vivian reached for him. He stepped back. That frightened her more than anger would have. Please. Adrian looked toward Luke. No one deletes anything. No one copies anything. No one leaves the security office with footage until I see it. Luke nodded. Understood. Adrian turned to Claire. Stay with Ellie. Claire looked at him, and Adrian looked at Maddie. She was still holding her injured wrist. She comes with me. Vivian stepped between them. No. Adrian's gaze settled on her. She stopped. His voice was quiet. If you told me the truth, the cameras will protect you. Vivian stared at him. Then he looked at Maddie. And if you lied, they will protect her. Maddie swallowed. Adrian opened the library door. The sound of the wedding returned immediately. Music, footsteps, distant laughter, crystal glasses, guests arriving beneath white roses. Adrian stepped into the hallway. Maddie followed several feet behind him. Luke moved ahead. Claire stayed with Ellie. Vivian remained inside the library for a moment, alone in her wedding dress. Then she turned toward the mirror above the fireplace. Her face was pale. Her breathing had changed. For the first time that morning, there was no one in the room she needed to perform for. And the smile did not come back. The security office sat beneath the east wing of the estate, far enough from the ballroom that the music reached it only as a distant vibration through the walls. Adrian entered first. Luke followed. Maddie came last. The room was colder than the rest of the house. Rows of monitors covered one wall. Live feeds showed the front gate, the ballroom entrance, the service corridor, the terrace, the garage, and the upper halls where wedding staff still moved as if nothing had changed. On one screen, guests arrived beneath white flowers. On another, a violinist adjusted her chair. On another, Claire sat in the library with Ellie on her lap. Adrian removed his jacket and placed it over the back of a chair. His movements were controlled, too controlled. Luke sat at the main console. How far back? 7 days. Luke entered commands. Maddie remained near the door. Adrian looked at her. "You can sit. I am fine. You are shaking." She looked down. Her hands were trembling. She folded them together. "I said I am fine." Adrian did not argue. Luke pulled up the first set of recordings. "We have coverage outside the bridal suite. The interior camera was removed during renovations last year. Nothing inside the room." Vivian had known that. The thought crossed Maddie's face before she could hide it. Adrian noticed. She knew there was no camera inside. Maddie hesitated. "I do not know," Luke answered. She would have seen the system map during the wedding security briefing. Adrian said nothing. Luke continued searching. Hallway camera caught the door this morning. The footage appeared. Timestamp: 10:14. Maddie entered carrying tea. 10:15. The stylist left. 10:18. The door remained closed. 10:23. Maddie stepped out. She was rubbing her wrist. 3 seconds later, Ellie appeared at the far end of the corridor. The child stopped, watched Maddie, then backed away. No assault, no sound, just the aftermath. Adrian leaned closer to the monitor. Again. Luke replayed it. Maddie looked away. Adrian watched her exit the room a second time. He noticed the way she covered her wrist. Anything from another angle, Luke shook his head. Not inside. Adrian remained still. Vivian's defense had not been disproved. Not yet. Luke moved backward through the recordings. Yesterday, dining room. Maddie's chest tightened. The broken vase, the footage loaded. The camera angle was wide. Vivian stood at the table. Maddie was several feet away. The florist was near the windows. Ellie had not entered yet. No audio. Vivian looked at the centerpiece. Then she placed 2 fingers against the vase. She pushed. It slid, fell, shattered. No accident, no misunderstanding, nothing ambiguous. Luke froze the image. Adrian stared at the screen. Maddie watched him instead. Something in his face changed. Not anger yet. Recognition. He said, "Play it." Luke continued. Vivian looked down at the broken glass, then at Maddie. Maddie crouched. Ellie appeared. The conversation could not be heard. Vivian crouched in front of the child. A minute later, Adrian entered. Vivian pointed toward Maddie. Adrian looked down at the glass. The footage ended. Silence filled the security office. Adrian turned toward Maddie. "She told me you dropped it." Maddie nodded. "Why did you not correct her? I told you why." His jaw tightened. Luke looked between them but said nothing. Adrian faced the screen again. "Find more." Luke pulled footage from the service corridor. Tuesday. Daniel stood with 2 trays. Vivian faced him. Adrian was visible at the far end of the hall speaking on the phone. He disappeared. Vivian's posture changed. She pointed toward a second tray. Daniel hesitated. She pointed again. He lifted both, his arms bent under the weight. Adrian watched the young man struggle down the hallway. Luke moved forward. Another recording. Rosa stood in the pantry doorway. Vivian spoke to her. No sound. Rosa's face remained unreadable. Vivian stepped closer. Rosa lowered her eyes. Adrian appeared at the opposite end of the corridor. Vivian smiled. She touched Rosa lightly on the shoulder. The shift was so fast it felt rehearsed. Adrian leaned against the desk. Again. Luke replayed the moment. Vivian cold. Adrian enters. Vivian warm. Cold. Warm. Cold. Warm. The rhythm became impossible to ignore. Maddie felt sick. Not because the footage surprised her, because seeing it from a distance made the pattern look worse. Deliberate. Measured. Luke opened footage from Monday. Vivian stood near the breakfast room. Ellie sat with crayons. Adrian walked outside to take a phone call. The glass doors closed. Vivian turned toward Maddie. Her face changed. Less than 30 seconds later, Adrian returned. Vivian smiled again. Adrian stared at the screen. Keep going. Luke did. One clip became 4. 4 became 9. Different rooms, different employees, the same pattern. Every time Adrian entered, Vivian became softer. Every time he left, the warmth disappeared. No single clip showed enough to end an engagement. Together they showed something worse. She knew exactly when she was being watched. Adrian straightened. How many cameras does she know about all of them? You are sure she reviewed the security layout with me before the guest list was finalized? Maddie looked at Luke. So she knew where there were blind spots. Luke nodded slowly. Yes. Adrian walked away from the monitors. He crossed the small room once, then back again. Maddie had never seen him pace before. He stopped near the door. Bring Daniel in. Luke picked up his phone. Now. 10 minutes later, Daniel entered. He was still in his wedding uniform. Black vest, white shirt. His face changed when he saw Adrian. Sir. Adrian gestured toward the chair. Sit. Daniel remained standing. I am okay. Adrian's expression tightened. Why is everyone in this house afraid of chairs today? Daniel glanced at Maddie, then sat. Adrian stood across from him. I am going to ask you a question. I want the truth, not the answer you think keeps your job. Daniel swallowed. All right. Has Vivian threatened you? Daniel's eyes moved toward Luke. Then Maddie. Adrian said, Look at me. Daniel did. Has she? Yes. The word was barely audible. How many times I do not know. More than once. Yes. What did she say? Daniel took a breath. She said if I embarrassed her during the reception, she would make sure I never worked another private event on the North Shore. Adrian looked at Luke. Luke nodded. The footage had shown that conversation. No audio. But now there were words. Adrian continued. Anything else? Daniel stared at his hands. She said I was replaceable. When last month. Why I brought sparkling water instead of still water to a dinner. Adrian's face remained calm. Daniel continued. She said people like me should be grateful to work in a house like this. Maddie looked down. Adrian asked, Did you tell anyone? Know why? Daniel laughed nervously. Because I thought she would be your wife. Adrian's eyes hardened. That is not an answer. Daniel looked up. Yes, it is. The room became quiet. Adrian said nothing. Daniel continued. You are Mr. Cole. She was going to be Mrs. Cole. I figured if I complained, the question would not be what she said. The question would be whether I was worth the trouble. Adrian looked away. The sentence struck deeper than Daniel understood. Adrian finally said, You can go. Daniel stood. At the door he paused. I am sorry. Adrian looked back. For what Daniel did not have an answer. He left. Adrian stared at the closed door. Then he said, Rosa. Rosa entered 15 minutes later. She did not sit either. Adrian gave up asking. How long have you known? Rosa folded her hands. Known what? That something was wrong. Rosa looked at Maddie, then Adrian. A while. How long? Months. Maddie looked at her. Adrian's face became unreadable. Months. Yes. And you never told me. No. Why? Rosa met his eyes. Because you loved her. Adrian's jaw tightened. So I have worked for families like yours for a long time. My family. Yes. Then you should know me. I do. Apparently not. Rosa did not flinch. You are fair when you have facts. Then bring me facts. That is the problem. Adrian stared at her. Rosa continued. People with power rarely understand how much proof someone without power thinks they need. Maddie looked at her. Rosa's voice remained calm. If Vivian snapped at me, that was not proof. If she embarrassed Daniel, that was not proof. If she grabbed Maddie and no one saw it, that was not proof. Every incident was small enough to explain away. Adrian glanced at the monitors, but together. Rosa nodded. Together, they become something else. He looked back at her. Did she ever threaten you? No. Why not? Because I am old enough not to scare easily, Rosa paused. And because I do not live in the cottage with a child. Maddie felt the words like a hand against her chest. Adrian looked at her, then back at Rosa. Did you tell Maddie not to come to me? Rosa hesitated. Yes. Adrian's eyes sharpened. Why? Because I was afraid. Of Vivian nor Adrian waited, Rosa said, of being wrong. The room fell silent again. Adrian looked toward the monitors. Wedding guests moved through the halls. Music continued. No one outside the security office knew the ceremony had stopped existing. Adrian said quietly, "Go." Rosa turned. Before she reached the door, Adrian added Rosa. She looked back. You should have told me. She nodded. I know. Then she left. Adrian remained silent for several seconds. Luke returned to the console. We have more footage. Adrian looked at Maddie. Do you want to see it? She understood the question beneath the question. Do you want to relive it, no? He nodded. Then do not. Maddie stayed anyway. Luke loaded another clip. The hallway outside the bridal suite, earlier that week. Maddie entered. Minutes later she came out, again rubbing her wrist. Adrian stared at the screen. You said she grabbed you that day too. Yes. Why the veil? Adrian looked at her. The veil. She said I corrected her. And that was enough for her. Adrian turned away. Maddie watched his back. Adrian. He looked over his shoulder. It was the first time she had used his first name without being invited. Neither of them mentioned it. She said, Do not blame yourself for not seeing something she was hiding from you. He stared at her. That sounds generous. It is true. I walked into those rooms. Yes, I spoke to those people. Yes. And everyone smiled. Because they had to. His face changed. Maddie realized the answer had hurt him. Adrian looked at the monitors. No. What they thought they had to. He faced her fully. That is different. Maddie said nothing. Adrian continued. I built this house around loyalty. I thought people trusted me. They do. Then why did a 3-year-old have to be the first person to tell me the truth? Maddie looked toward the live feed of the library. Ellie was sitting beside Claire, coloring again. Her feet swung beneath the chair. She had less to lose. Adrian followed her gaze. Neither spoke for a moment. Then he asked, Tell me everything. Maddie looked at him. Everything not what the cameras saw. What they did not. Luke quietly stood. I will give you the room. Adrian nodded. Luke left. The door closed. Maddie remained near the wall. Adrian sat on the edge of the desk. Start wherever you want. She almost said there was nothing more. The old instinct. Minimize. Survive. Then she remembered Ellie saying, You lied. Maddie took a breath. She grabbed me the first time over the veil. Adrian listened. She threatened Daniel. She talked down to Rosa. She told me things would change after the wedding. What things? Staffing. She said once she became Mrs. Cole, she would decide who stayed in the house. Adrian's face hardened. Continue. She broke the vase. I saw that. She told Ellie it fell. He looked toward the monitor. Maddie continued. Last night she gave me an envelope. What was in it? Cash. How much? Several $1,000s. For what she called it a wedding bonus. Adrian's expression became cold. Where is it? I left it on the table. She connected it to Ellie. Not directly. Tell me exactly what she said. Maddie repeated the conversation. Children repeat things. Employment changes. Keep her out of it. Saturday changes everything. This house becomes mine too. Adrian did not interrupt. Maddie finished. Then she said, She looked at the cottage when she said it. His eyes lifted. The cottage. Yes. She threatened your housing. She never used those exact words. She did not have to. Maddie nodded. Adrian looked down at his hands. His voice dropped. Why were you still going to work the wedding I needed the pay? He looked up. And after I was leaving, without telling me, yes. Why? Because I did not want you to have to choose. Adrian stared at her. Maddie continued before he could answer. I thought if I left it ended. For you, for Ellie, and everyone else. Maddie flinched. He regretted the question immediately. I am sorry. No, you are right. I was not accusing you, but you are right. She looked toward the door. I was scared, Adrian said quietly. I know. Maddie looked at him. He continued. I should have made it easier for you to tell me. You did not create her. No, but you created the house. That stopped him. Maddie lowered her voice. And everyone believed your happiness mattered more than their discomfort. Adrian stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. No defense. No excuse. Just acceptance. A soft knock sounded. Ellie stepped inside. Claire stood behind her. She wanted her mom. Maddie held out her hand. Ellie ran to her. Maddie pulled her close. Adrian crouched. Ellie looked at him. You are still mad. Yes. At me? No. Mommy? No. Ellie thought about it. At Miss Vivi, Adrian's expression tightened. At a lot of things. Ellie looked at him. Did you see Adrian knew what she meant? Yes. Do you believe me? His face changed. He reached out and adjusted the sleeve of her yellow cardigan. I do. Ellie nodded. Then she leaned against Maddie. Adrian looked at the child and said quietly, I am sorry you had to tell me. Ellie frowned. Why? Because one of us should have noticed first. She considered this, then said, Grown-ups miss stuff. Claire gave a broken little laugh. Adrian almost smiled. Apparently. Luke appeared at the door. Adrian. The tone changed everything. Adrian stood. What I need to show you something. Claire took Ellie. Maddie stayed. Luke walked them back to the monitors. There is no video inside the bridal suite, but there is an audio pickup in the security hallway beside the archive room. Adrian frowned. What does that have to do with Vivian? Luke looked at him. She came down here 20 minutes ago. Maddie went still. Luke opened the audio file. Vivian's voice filled the room. Calm, low, clear. Delete them, Luke's recorded voice answered. No, you work for the Cole family. I do. Then protect it. I am. A pause. Then Vivian again. If those videos leave this room, Adrian is humiliated in front of half the city. Luke said, that is his decision. A longer silence. Then Vivian's voice. Everyone has a number. Maddie looked at Adrian. He did not move. Luke played the rest. Vivian offered money. Luke refused. Then a second voice appeared faintly in the recording. Claire, you should stop talking. The file ended. Adrian looked at Luke. She tried to pay you. Yes. To destroy the footage. Yes. Maddie expected Adrian to explode. He did not. That was worse. He picked up his tuxedo jacket, put it on, fastened one button. Then he looked at Luke. Where is she, Chapel? Adrian nodded. He walked toward the door. Maddie said his name. He stopped. She did not know what she wanted to say. Be careful. Do not become what she thinks you are. Do not let anger decide for you. Instead, she said Ellie is with Claire. Adrian looked at her. I know. Then he left. The chapel was empty. Candles burned along both walls. White flowers surrounded the altar. The doors at the far end remained closed to the guests gathering elsewhere in the house. Vivian stood at the front in her wedding gown. Her veil had finally been placed. She faced the altar. Adrian entered alone. The door closed behind him. She heard it, did not turn. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Vivian said, I wondered how long it would take. Adrian walked down the aisle. His footsteps echoed. He stopped several feet behind her. You tried to pay Luke to delete the footage. Vivian closed her eyes. I tried to protect us. No. She turned. Her makeup was perfect. Her eyes were not. I panicked. You lied. I panicked. You threatened employees. I was under pressure. You grabbed Maddie. Vivian looked away. I lost my temper. You blamed her for something you broke. It was a vase. You tried to destroy the evidence. I was trying to stop this from becoming a spectacle. Adrian's voice remained quiet. This is not about the spectacle. Vivian laughed bitterly. Of course it is. Everything in your world is about perception. My world. Yes. She stepped toward him. Do you have any idea what it is like to enter a family like yours? Adrian watched her. Explain it. Everyone watches, everyone tests. Your sister studies every word I say. Your employees decide whether I belong here. Your friends compare me to women who came before me. So you frighten them. I established boundaries. You hurt people who could not fight back. I grabbed a wrist. You threatened a mother's job and home. Vivian went still. Now she knew Maddie had told him everything. She is staff. Silence. The words seemed to remain in the chapel after she said them. Adrian looked at her. What did you say? Vivian realized the mistake. That is not what I meant. It sounded clear. I meant she works for us, for me. Vivian's jaw tightened. Today she would have worked for both of us. Adrian stared at her. Then he said, My mother worked behind the front desk of a hotel when my father met her. Vivian blinked. I know, no, you know the story. Adrian stepped closer. You did not see what his family did to her. Vivian said nothing. They smiled at dinner, called her beautiful, told my father he was lucky. His voice became lower. Then when he left the room, they reminded her where she came from. Vivian's face changed. Adrian continued. I was 9 the first time I heard one of my uncles call her staff, Adrian. She spent years learning which rooms she was welcome in. Vivian shook her head. I am not your family. No. He looked at her. You had a choice. Her eyes filled. I love you. I believe you believe that. Vivian recoiled. That is cruel. No, cruel is what you did when you thought no one important was watching. She stepped closer. You are throwing away 2 years over a maid. Adrian's face became still. No. He reached into his pocket. The wedding ring rested in his palm. He placed it on the altar. I am ending this because of the person you became when you thought I was not there. Vivian stared at the ring. There are 200 people downstairs. I know. My parents are here. I know. You are going to humiliate me. No. She looked at him. Adrian continued. No one will be told why. Vivian stared. You are protecting me. I am refusing to become cruel because you were. Her face crumpled. For the first time all day, she looked completely without control. What am I supposed to do? Adrian looked toward the side door. Luke has a car waiting at the east entrance. You planned that already? Yes. Vivian looked at him for a long time. Then she reached up, removed the veil, set it on the front pew. She passed Adrian without touching him. At the door, she stopped. You will regret this. Adrian did not turn. Vivian waited. He said nothing. She left. The chapel door closed. Adrian remained standing beside the altar. Outside, the quartet continued playing because no one had told them to stop yet. The music reached the chapel through the walls, soft, beautiful, wrong. Adrian looked at the ring lying between the candles, then toward the empty pews. For the first time that morning, there was no accusation to investigate, no footage left to review, no one else to question, only the truth, and the silence that remained after everyone finally stopped hiding from it. The first thing the guests noticed was the music. It stopped, not dramatically. There was no crash of instruments, no shouted order, no sudden announcement. The string quartet simply reached the end of a piece and did not begin another. For several seconds, the ballroom remained full of conversation. Crystal glasses touched. People laughed softly. Someone near the windows asked when the ceremony would begin. Then Claire Cole stepped onto the small platform at the front of the room. The conversations faded. She wore a dark green dress and held no microphone. She did not need one. Her family name had spent decades teaching rooms to become quiet. Thank you for coming. The last whisper disappeared. Claire looked toward the closed doors. For 1 second, she wished Adrian were standing beside her. Then she remembered his face in the library, his expression when he learned how long people had been afraid to speak. She continued, The ceremony will not take place today. A ripple moved through the ballroom. Not sound at first. Movement, heads turning, brows lifting, hands reaching instinctively for phones. Claire kept her voice calm. This is a private matter. We appreciate your understanding and ask that you respect both families. The silence lasted less than 3 seconds. Then the room erupted. Questions, whispers, speculation. Vivian's mother stood so quickly her chair struck the table behind her. What happened? Claire looked at her. I am sorry. That is not an answer. No. Claire's face remained steady. It is all I can give you. Near the back of the ballroom, one of Adrian's business associates lifted his phone. Luke appeared beside him before he could type. Not inside the house. The man looked annoyed. Luke did not move. The phone disappeared into a pocket. Then the ballroom doors opened. Adrian entered. He had removed his tie. His tuxedo remained perfectly fitted, but something about him looked different. The man who had walked downstairs that morning expecting to become a husband had disappeared somewhere between the security office and the chapel. This Adrian looked quieter, older. He crossed the room without hurrying. Every face turned toward him. He stopped beside Claire. A man near the front called out, "Adrian, is there going to be a statement?" Adrian looked at him. No. The man waited as though expecting more. Nothing came. Another guest asked, "Is Vivian all right? She has transportation." Did something happen between the families? Adrian's expression did not change. "This is private." That ended the questions. Not because curiosity had disappeared. Because everyone in the ballroom understood there was a line Adrian Cole had no intention of allowing them to cross. He looked around the room. Some of these people had known him since childhood. Some had traveled from New York, Boston, Miami, Los Angeles. Some had come because they loved him. Others had come because invitations from the Cole family were rarely declined. "I apologize for bringing you here under different expectations," Adrian said. "Food and transportation are available. Stay as long as you wish. Leave whenever you prefer." He paused. No one on the staff is to be questioned about what happened. Several eyes shifted immediately toward the servers. Adrian noticed. His voice became colder. "I mean that." No one argued. He stepped away from the platform. Claire followed him into the hall. The second the doors closed behind them, her posture softened. "Where is she gone?" Claire searched his face. "Did she say anything enough?" "You okay?" Adrian gave her a look. Claire almost smiled. Stupid question. "Yes." She leaned against the wall. "I should have told you." Adrian looked toward the ballroom doors. "You should have." Claire accepted it. No excuses, no defense. Then Adrian said, "I should have made it easier." She looked at him. "For you, for Maddie, for all of them." Claire folded her arms. "You cannot see everything. That is what Ellie said." Claire smiled faintly. "Smart kid." Adrian looked down the corridor. "Where is she with Maddie?" He nodded. Claire watched him for a moment. "You should go find them." Adrian did not answer. "You are not good company right now. I have never been good company. That has never stopped you before." His mouth almost moved. Almost. Then he walked away. The ballroom slowly emptied over the next 2 hours. The flowers remained. That was the strangest part. Hundreds of white roses climbed the staircase as if nothing had happened. Candles burned beside untouched place settings. Champagne cooled in silver buckets. A wedding cake stood beneath soft lights in the dining room. 5 perfect layers waiting for a celebration that no longer existed. By evening, the estate looked less like the site of a canceled wedding and more like a beautiful place abandoned in the middle of a dream. Maddie walked through the service corridor holding Ellie's hand. Her daughter had changed out of the yellow dress and into leggings and a sweater. Mr. Rabbit dragged against the floor. Maddie stopped at the kitchen. Rosa was directing the staff as leftover food was packed for donation. "You do not need to be working," Rosa said. "I am not. You are carrying towels." Maddie looked down. She was. She had picked up a stack without thinking. Rosa took them from her. "Go home." Maddie nodded. Then she looked around the kitchen. Daniel was wrapping trays. 2 caterers cleaned counters. The room looked normal. That bothered her. "You okay?" Rosa asked. Maddie nodded, then shook her head. "I do not know." Rosa looked at Ellie. "Do you want something sweet before you go?" Ellie thought about it. "Cake." Maddie said no. Rosa said, "Absolutely." Maddie looked at her. "Rosa, there is a 5-layer wedding cake no one is eating." Ellie's eyes widened. Rosa cut a small piece. Ellie sat at the counter. For the first time all day, she looked like a child again. Maddie watched her take the first bite. Then she looked at Rosa. "I am still leaving." Rosa did not seem surprised. "When tonight, if I can. You have somewhere to go. My sister is in Milwaukee. That is almost 2 hours." "I know." Rosa lowered her voice. "Do not make a life decision because today was terrible. I made the decision last night, before Adrian knew. That does not change what happened. No." Rosa studied her. "But it changes what might happen now." Maddie looked toward Ellie. That is what I am afraid of. Rosa understood, not afraid that Adrian would punish her. Afraid that gratitude would become another kind of obligation. Maddie did not want to stay because Adrian felt guilty. She did not want Ellie growing up believing safety came only from standing near a powerful man. She wanted a life that belonged to them. Rosa touched her arm. Then make sure leaving is your choice too. Maddie looked at her. The words followed her all the way back to the cottage. The suitcase was exactly where she had left it. Maddie placed it on the bed and began checking what she had packed. Ellie stood in the doorway. Are we going now, maybe? We're Aunt Megan's. Does she have pancakes? Maddie smiled. Yes, good pancakes, I will tell her you asked. Ellie climbed onto the bed. Is Miss Vivi gone? Maddie stopped folding a sweater. Yes, forever. Maddie sat beside her. She is not coming back here. Ellie considered that, then asked, Is Mr. Adrian sad? Maddie looked down. Probably, because he loved her. Yes. Ellie touched Mr. Rabbit's ear. Can somebody be mean and somebody still loves them? Maddie took a slow breath. Yes. Why? Because people are complicated. Ellie frowned. That is what you say when you do not have a good answer. Maddie laughed. A real laugh. Small, tired, but real. You know what. You are right. Ellie leaned against her. Maddie wrapped one arm around her. A knock came from the front door. Maddie knew who it was before she opened it. Adrian stood on the porch. No tie, no jacket. His shirt sleeves were rolled to his forearms. He looked toward the suitcase visible through the bedroom doorway. You are leaving. Maddie stepped outside and pulled the door almost closed behind her. Yes, tonight if Ellie stays awake long enough. Adrian looked toward the house through the trees, then back at Maddie. You do not have to, I know. You still want to, I think so. He nodded. That surprised her. She had expected an argument. Adrian rested one hand against the porch railing. Do you have somewhere safe, my sister, Milwaukee? Maddie looked at him. How do you know where my sister lives? You listed her as an emergency contact 4 years ago. Of course you remember that. I remember useful things. She almost smiled. Then the quiet returned. Adrian looked toward the cottage door. Is Ellie okay? She is eating leftover wedding cake and asking difficult questions. That sounds normal. For her, yes. He looked at Maddie. I owe you an apology. You already said that. Not properly. She waited. Adrian chose his words carefully. I thought being fair was enough. Maddie said nothing. I thought if I paid people well, treated them with respect, and did not tolerate obvious abuse, then people would tell me when something was wrong. He looked toward the mansion. I built a house where everyone knew I was in charge. Somehow I never considered what that meant when the problem was someone I loved. Maddie crossed her arms against the cold. You did not know I should have. You keep saying that because it is true. No. Adrian looked at her. Maddie continued. You should have listened once you knew. You did. That is a very low standard. It is higher than some people reach. He held her gaze. Maddie softened. I am not trying to make you feel better, I know. Good. A quiet moment passed. Then Adrian said, do not decide because you think I expect you to stay. I do not. And do not leave because you think staying means you owe me. Maddie stared at him. He had understood exactly what she feared. Adrian continued, take a few days, go to your sister's, keep the cottage, you will be paid. Maddie started to object. He lifted one hand. This is not charity, it sounds like it. It is administrative leave. She gave him a look. You invented that 30 seconds ago. Yes. That finally made her smile. A small one. Adrian saw it. Something in his expression softened. Take the time. Maddie nodded slowly. All right. He stepped back. Then Ellie opened the door behind Maddie. Mr. Adrian. Maddie turned. Ellie stood barefoot in the doorway. Adrian looked down at her. You are supposed to be inside. I heard you. That is generally how doors work. Ellie ignored him. Are you sad? Maddie closed her eyes. Ellie. Adrian said, it is okay. He crouched. Yes. Ellie studied him. Because Miss Vivi left, yes. Do you want cake? Adrian looked at Maddie. She covered her mouth to hide a smile. He looked back at Ellie. What kind wedding? Adrian was silent for a second. Then he laughed. Not loudly, but it was the first time Maddie had heard him laugh all day, maybe later. Ellie nodded as if the matter had been settled. Then she stepped forward and hugged him. Adrian froze. His arms remained at his sides for a second. Then one hand rested carefully against the child's back. Maddie watched. Something in her chest tightened. Not fear, something less familiar. Ellie pulled away. "You can have my frosting. That is generous. I do not like the white part. Less generous." She went back inside. Adrian stood. Neither he nor Maddie spoke about the moment. 3 days later, Maddie returned from Milwaukee, not because Adrian asked her to. He had not called once. He had sent only one message. "The cottage is yours as long as you need it. Nothing else." That mattered. When Maddie entered the estate on Monday morning, the wedding flowers were gone. So were the candles. The ballroom had been cleared. No trace remained except one forgotten white ribbon tied around the leg of a chair. Rosa found Maddie near the kitchen. "You came back for a conversation. Good. Do not look too happy. I am not. You are smiling. My face does what it wants." Maddie shook her head. Adrian called the staff together that afternoon. Everyone gathered in the dining room. Not guests, not family. Staff, security, kitchen workers, housekeepers, drivers, gardeners. Rosa stood near Maddie. Daniel stood at the back. Adrian entered alone, no suit jacket, no speech in his hand. He stood at the head of the table. "I want to say something before anyone starts worrying." A few people exchanged looks. No one is losing their job. Shoulders visibly relaxed. Adrian noticed. That alone told him more than he wanted to know. He continued. "I used to think a good employer was someone who treated people fairly." Rosa watched him. "I was wrong." The room remained silent. "Fair treatment matters. It is not enough." Adrian looked around the table. "If the only way a problem reaches me is through courage, then the system is broken." Maddie felt Rosa glance toward her. Adrian continued. "Starting today, there will be an outside reporting service. Anonymous if needed. No family member, partner, guest, or manager can dismiss an employee without documented review." Luke stood near the door. "All complaints involving intimidation or physical contact will be logged and investigated." Adrian looked at Daniel, then Rosa, then Maddie. "You do not need permission to tell the truth." No applause followed. Adrian had not asked for any. Rosa nodded once. Adrian saw. That was enough. Later he asked Maddie to meet him in the library. 2 envelopes sat on the desk. Maddie looked at them suspiciously. "I have had enough envelopes this week." Adrian almost smiled. "This is different." He pushed the first toward her. Maddie opened it. "A formal employment offer, operations coordinator, higher salary, full health coverage, predictable hours, tuition support for Ellie's preschool." She looked up. "Why? Because Rosa says you have been doing half the work already." Rosa exaggerates. She does not. Maddie looked back at the page, then at the second envelope. "What is that if you do not want the job?" She opened it. A severance package, recommendation letters, 3 months of housing. Maddie stared at him. "You prepared both?" "Yes." Why? Adrian leaned against the desk. "If you stay, I want you to stay because the position is right." He looked at the second envelope. "If you leave, I want you to leave because you chose something better." Maddie was quiet for a long time. "You really thought this through. I have been told I occasionally learn." She smiled. Then she picked up the first envelope. "I want the job." Adrian nodded. "All right, but I have conditions." His eyebrow lifted. "Of course you do. I report to Rosa." "Yes. My cottage remains part of compensation, not a favor." "Yes, and Ellie does not get special treatment." Adrian considered that. "No," Maddie frowned. "No, she is 3. She is going to get special treatment. That is not negotiable, no." Maddie shook her head. "You are impossible. I have heard that too." Several weeks passed. Winter slowly loosened its grip on Lake Forest. One afternoon, Maddie entered the library looking for Ellie. She stopped. The alcove beneath the tall windows had changed. Low wooden shelves lined the wall. Small chairs surrounded a soft rug. Books filled every shelf. Animals, space, dinosaurs, fairy tales. A small brass plaque rested beside the window. "Ellie's Corner for the bravest voice in the house." Ellie stood in the center of the rug staring at it. Adrian leaned against one of the shelves. "This is mine," Ellie asked. "The books are technically mine." She frowned. You have grown up books. I contain multitudes. Maddie laughed from the doorway. Adrian looked toward her. Ellie pointed at the plaque. It has my name. Yes. Because I told you Adrian crouched beside her. Because you told the truth when it was hard. Ellie considered that, then hugged him. This time Adrian was ready. Mostly. Maddie watched them. Their eyes met over Ellie's shoulder. The moment lasted 1 second too long. Neither looked away quickly enough. That night Maddie tucked Ellie into bed. The little girl was almost asleep when she whispered, "Mommy, yes, are you scared anymore?" Maddie stopped. She sat beside her. Sometimes. Ellie opened her eyes. Of Miss Vivy, no. Then what Maddie thought about it. Life. Ellie frowned. That is big. Yes. Are you scared now? Maddie smiled. A little. Ellie touched her hand. Maddie looked down at their fingers, then said, "Being scared and being helpless are not the same thing." Ellie thought carefully. "Did I help you, did? Because I told Mr. Adrian because you told the truth when the grown-ups were afraid." Ellie smiled proudly. Then her expression changed. "Can I tell the truth about the cookies?" Maddie narrowed her eyes. How many Ellies slowly pulled the blanket over her face? Maddie laughed. By spring, the estate looked different. Not because of new furniture, not because of flowers, because people moved differently. Daniel joked in the kitchen again. Junior staff spoke directly to Rosa when something went wrong. Luke's reporting system had already handled 2 small disputes before either became serious. The house had not become perfect. It had become easier to breathe in. One evening, Maddie walked back from the cottage after putting Ellie to bed. Adrian sat alone on the terrace overlooking the lake. His sleeves were rolled up. A glass of untouched whiskey rested beside him. "You should sleep," Maddie said. He glanced over. "So should you." She sat several feet away. The lake was dark. For a while, neither spoke. Then Adrian said, "I still replay the cameras." Maddie looked at him. "All those times I walked into the room." He stared toward the water. "I never saw it. You were not supposed to. I should have. No one sees everything." He looked at her. "That sounds dangerously close to forgiveness." "It is not." A faint smile touched his mouth. "Good." Silence returned. "Not uncomfortable this time." Maddie said, "Ellie trusts you. I know. That is not a small thing." His expression became serious. "I know that too." She looked at him. For once, Adrian did not look like the man people whispered about in Chicago. He looked tired, human. A man whose certainty had broken and who had chosen to rebuild something better from it. Maddie stood. "Good night, Adrian." He looked up. "Good night, Maddie." She walked toward the house. Then Ellie's voice came from the terrace doors. "Mommy!" Maddie stopped. Ellie stood there in pajamas, clutching Mr. Rabbit. "What are you doing out of bed?" Ellie ignored the question. She looked at Adrian, then at Maddie. Her face became serious. "Mr. Adrian, yes." Ellie pointed at her mother. "Mommy likes you." Maddie froze. "Ellie." Adrian stared at the child. For perhaps the first time in his adult life, Adrian Cole had no answer ready. Ellie smiled. Maddie covered her face. "You are going back to bed." "But it is true." "Bed." Adrian started laughing. Maddie looked at him through her fingers. "This is not funny. It is a little funny. You are encouraging her." "I have not said anything. That is worse." Ellie reached for Maddie's hand. Adrian stood. Their eyes met. Something quiet passed between them. Not a promise. Not yet. Just possibility. Outside, the dark water stretched beyond the estate. Inside, the house remained imperfect, complicated, alive. But no one inside it had to earn safety through silence anymore. And for the first time, even the smallest voice could be heard.